Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Daily Tip Show on the Inspired Business TV channel. And in today's episode, we're going to look at how do businesses adapt to change in crisis or during crisis. With myself, Gary Setterfield, award-winning business entrepreneur, global Synergist master trainer. So as you can see, this show is live, and also DFC mindset coach, and my very good friend and business partner, Sukhi Wahiwala, award-winning business entrepreneur, sought after international business speaker and mentor, and global thought leader and Forbes judge. These shows, as you know, are just a discussion between ourselves about issues and challenges and questions that people want answered during the current times. So Sukhi, can you help us? Businesses are having to adapt at the moment radically. You know, we've got big corporations and institutions like Mercedes, Chrysler, all the big car companies are now changing their sudden business model. So how do businesses, or should businesses, adapt during a crisis period?
Hi, welcome again. Thank you very much for having me on this show. And our vision, as you already know, is to create that clarity in small bite-sized chunks for everybody. Okay, so in our current business environment, now anybody in their right mind cannot predict what's actually going to happen in the next couple to 3 months, or for the rest of this year, for that matter. So business itself is without a doubt paused, and literally it could even have a 180-degree complete about turn. People, as we mentioned just a moment ago there, Gary, with reference to Mercedes-Benz, just to mention one company, a large multi-billion-dollar corporation has completely paused construction, or production of their cars, and has taken a completely different move, completely to another different vertical, a different business vertical, and they're now talking about manufacturing ventilation systems, so ventilators. So you've got the only thing, the similarity that connects them to is a production line, engineers, and a highly productive group of companies. So my question here arises very simply, is that what should we be doing in the smaller SME market, and also the solopreneurs, which is most important, the individuals who are our mentees in the Inspired Tribe and the people we communicate with. So the first thing that really needs to understand here is that nobody understands what's going to happen. So nothing is actually correct or wrong. Does that make sense? The fact of taking action towards something different is the key. We need to understand that if let's look at one particular company style. Let's say if you were a coach or a mentor of some kind. If you were doing face-to-face coaching mentoring, like I do within our group of mentoring, our business boardroom program, the mastermind programs. And what we've done is we've adapted the whole of this delivery, all of our mentoring, to be done on VoIP, or voice over IP. So if you want to learn a bit more about VoIP and how to deliver this kind of content, episode 3, I think, and 4 are also covering this from a few weeks ago. The principal understanding is that we require to ensure that we're not being what we call, I think the word I'm looking for, Gary, is that we're not being over possessive and protective about the current productivity of our company. If you are an individual who's a coach, and let's say you had a group of products like face-to-face mentoring, training, or you had some educational training courses that you were delivering, today they might not be relevant. The bottom line is that we have to be in a position where you've got to adapt to the current market, and the current market is online. And it may not be what you were originally selling. One of my mentees and clients is actually an individual who works within the ITOL servicing industry. And basically, that person's job was to do physical training. And now what they're finding is they've got no bookings for physical trainings, as you understand, through this COVID crisis. So what does that person do? Well, they've got to reinvent themselves to basically be somebody, a different entity totally. So originally, that person's model is to run from business to business, which is classified as business to business, B2B. Now we're converting the business into business to consumer or customer. So they're basically looking for the end user for a limited period of time. I've asked them to redefine their branding, rethink about everything, and saying call themselves the virtual training specialist. Does that make sense? So they're going into an environment where they're training people through internet, through Zoom, through any other voice over IP like Skype, etc.,
Okay.
or internal teams. That's the kind of thing that we've got to do. We've got to try to adapt individuals and start to offer a completely new, different product line. If you think you can predict this market, you're wrong. We're going to get this wrong. If the best statisticians and analysts who are stock brokers can't actually predict what's going to happen, how can we?
Fantastic. So let me just get this right. What we're saying then is a business is always and should be and have a business plan, which we all look at the beginning of every year, and we review it every month. It's probably more important now to look at the business plan on a monthly or weekly basis as things change. Is that correct?
It's kind of like that, Gary. Yes. You plan to predict or to project a year ahead. And the whole principle of a plan is it's supposed to be a document that's regularly updated. This is what we talk about in the Business Growth Accelerator, which we deliver through Cambridge and London universities. So when you're projecting a year ahead, let's say if it was no COVID crisis, you would have projected a year ahead and it would have sat there. What I'm trying to say is that a business plan only is valuable when you actually go back every month and reflect back upon it and adjust and update it with the new sales figures, the new cost figures, so your gross profits and net profits are alive. So going back to the question you asked about how often one should do this, is if this should be even looked on a daily basis about what am I actually offering the market that I have engaged. The key here is who are my clients, who are the people that I work with, who are my friends that actually listen to me and actually buy things from me. Does that make sense? And actually you need to adapt your business in accordance with what their requirements and needs are. You also require within the what we call a pandemic type scenario. This is a first time in my life, besides the global financial crash. That's nothing to do. I've been through 3 of them. But the actual process of what we're talking about now, when we're talking about actually being adaptive in this current state, we have to be less, what we call it, obsessed with holding our previous business banner and becoming whatever is necessary today for our client base. So we need to listen to what they require and deliver that for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So we have a business, and because of whatever the crisis may be, we're having to look at something completely different. That can be quite scary to a lot of people. How can they go about changing dramatically, like some of the big corporations have done, and do a 180? Is there something they should be looking for? Is it, say, as you've just mentioned, what is the market asking for? Or do they try and adapt what they know and what they have to meet the new requirements?
Great question. So immediately what needs to happen is that one needs to be aware of what they can deliver, what things they have experiences within, and then researching into the marketplace to ask them, what's happening in the current COVID environment, television, news, etc., and then work backwards from there to see what your adaptation is. So for example, if you're a car manufacturer and you've gone into producing respiratory information or equipment, that doesn't mean it's going to have to be your permanent new business. It may well be a new division after the current crisis that we're in, but you should always remember that business is just on pause. It isn't about destroying your current business, what you originally had previously. Just be sensitive to the fact that whatever you delivered doesn't necessarily have to work. For example, currently work now. If you're a grocery store, for example, today it's probably more viable for you to offer a home delivery, adapting to the needs of the elderly, maybe adapting to the needs of the people in vulnerable societies and communities, maybe ringing around or creating an online portal for people to actually engage with your company online. Does that make sense? So you may still be selling groceries and home informations and foods, but they'll be done in a different manner. Your actual engagement or delivery methodology has to adapt to the current times. The current time being, in your home and home delivery. So the industries that are thriving right now, Amazon, people of that sort of nature, are the ones who are delivering at home. They're the ones who are on an upward keel. so that basically the sales and the investment structures are better. Voice over IP, if you're a service individual, somebody who sells knowledge, adaptions, consultants, etc., start to create content online on your own YouTube channel. That's one of the key things that one should be looking at, so that you're consistent. Always remember, consistency is key, quality is key, but consistency is key as well. You can have an off day, don't have to be perfect. Your audience you need to have a relationship with them so they can accept challenges and problems as well. You know, these sort of things. I hope this is helping in the sense of that if I am for example, a taxi driver, your business is currently completely not functioning, I don't believe. I don't believe that'll be the case. So what is it that I have as in assets, as in resources that I can repurpose? The key here is repurposing and adapting to the current market. So why don't you, as a taxi driver, obviously, please remember, it's very important to have a face mask and having all of the anti-sanitary and having gloves and everything you can possibly have, maybe even having a uniform that's washed daily for each day, so that you can go out into your car and you're being in engagement with other individuals. So you're wearing certain key points, so that's easy to change when you come home. Change your clothes very quickly. You know, try to be as hygienic as possible in the safety element. So maybe if you've got an outbuilding or an out area, leave your change of clothes there. So you can come home, go straight there, change your clothes, and then come inside the house. Does that make sense? Little things. But if you're a taxi driver, communicate with all of your grocery shops, your local independent grocery stores, and ask them and say, do you have any of these items? I mean, I know a good friend of mine who's basically got the car, got the driving, we're helping the NHS with deliveries, but he also is ringing up people and saying, do you need anything? And he's literally arranged, a local councillor here, and he's literally arranged whatever's required, we will go and pick it up for you and we'll go and home drop it. Now, here's the point. Who's going to pay for this type of thing? There is always going to be that wafer thin line of ethics and honorability involved as well. You can't just keep charging the elderly for this, but you could. There's nothing wrong with you turning and saying to people, I've seen this as well, there's an online platform called FundMe. So within FundMe, you could say, I'm a taxi driver, and I'm delivering a home delivery information. Can you fund me, the public, Joe Public, so I can feed and get food to the elderly and the vulnerable? Does that make sense? These are the kind of things that you should adapt yourself to. Help. Currently, in this scenario, the whole of the world and community needs to come together as one to try and help each other. But there is still easily an opportunity to say, my day rate is, let's say, £100 as a taxi driver. And I know that's a lot less than what you would normally earn, but that should be sufficient in this current time. You know, your mortgages are on pause, your credit cards, electricity, utility bills are all on pause. So it's being reactive to now, looking at our current costs of delivery and actually readapting it for the current market, which basically making it very public that you're opening it and saying, all I'm looking for is £500 and I can deliver 5 days of home delivery. And people will then assist you and fund you. So it's enough to put the fuel into the car, insurance and cover. So this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. People aren't engaging you as a taxi driver, no. Adapt. People aren't engaging you as maybe a shopkeeper with electronics. Well, that doesn't mean that people don't require electronics. Does that make sense as well? Home delivery is the key. We don't need to open shops, we just need to home deliver. But when you're delivering, you have to follow the social distancing protocol. I hope that helps.
It does, Sukhi. Now, we're coming to the end of this episode, and before I go through the power tips and just re-engage and let everybody know what we've spoken about, can you just give me one final tip on briefly mindset, because I'd like to do a separate episode purely on mindset around the current scenario, but just to give our audience an idea of how they can mentally stay strong during this period. Have you got just one tip, or maybe I could even get two out of you, to help people stay mentally strong at the moment?
This is so important, Gary. The mindset side of things and keeping mentally strong is super important. In future episodes, we'll be talking about overeating and being bored at home and that kind of stuff as well. But my thoughts very quickly, if I could just give you a very synopsized, very quick sort of like introduction to the conversation, you have to look at episode 2 and 1 of this particular series, where we cover how to bring your brain into flow and how to find your space within your home and environment. It's very important, this, because we are all individual human beings. But one of the key things I want to share here is, after you've watched those episodes 1 and 2, is to understand that not only do you have a life, but every other member of your family,
Yeah.
your friends, also
Very
have an
true.
importance in their life as well. So it's actually one of the key things to learn to give and to be respectful of somebody else's world is probably one of the key things that actually gives a surety to mindset. One of the other things as well, if you're naturally that sort of person who has we'll talk about psychometrics and human profiling in another episode, as you already have alluded to. If you are an individual who's always helping others, the opposite attracts for you as well, because you then also require to look at what you require yourself as well. So if you're a person who's always serving others, in this tried environment, when we're on top of each other, we've got space. I'm blessed truly with God's gratitude to be a current custodian of an estate. So I'm not necessarily on top of everybody. We have our own all spaces. We've got plenty of grounds to be walking around. But if you don't, you should just have that space for yourself. If it's a reading of a book, going out, we talk about this in more depth in episode 1 and episode 2, but please give yourself the time of day. Keeping your mindset focused, you need to set the day up. You've got to turn around. The final tip I want to share is you've got to kind of meditate, I suppose, whether you think about meditation as being godly or spirituality as in the universe. I see that as all of it as one. But meditation, if I could just explain, is basically to remind myself of a meme that was out and about, where it said, if we can't go out, why don't we go in? It's about looking inwards within myself. Does that make sense? To understand the possibilities that I'm going to create a resonance with myself, just to sit and breathe and be present, and then take the day and plan the day and be very grateful. The key is to be grateful for the whole day and whatever's happening to us, right or wrong. You know, the plan is in the architectural's hand. It's in the architect's hand. It's in the universe's hand. And what we've got to do is adapt to it and be very open and aware. That's one of the key things I would like to say.
Sukhi, thank you so much. Well, you know, folks, we've got 8 power tips there, which I will cover in a minute. But I do hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Please remember, follow us on Sukhi Wahiwala's official social media channels, including YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. And just look at what we've covered today. If you don't mind me just bringing these across. Remember, nothing is correct. We are in a time of adaptation. We're in a time of change. We need to be flexible, but we need to take action as well, and we need to take it quickly. The business plan needs to be flexible. Think about the market that you are working with and that you're connected to. What are they asking for? Because that's what we need to service. Be aware of what you can actually deliver. And that was a really key point that Sukhi's mentioned. And also, you know, so that we can keep in touch with everybody, do you have a YouTube channel that you can keep everybody abreast of what's going on in your world and others? You know, be consistent and always give out the same message. But if you are changing, make sure you can fund it, or make sure that you can get others to help you fund it. Be aware of what we mentioned in episode 1 and 2 about mindset, because this will help you definitely keep control. And the final point that Sukhi's just mentioned, and one which is vital, is setting up your day and planning it. Now, we talked at the very first thing about changing plans, adapting plans, but every day we're waking up and something is different. So be adapted to it, be a change maker, and work with that change. I hope you found those tips today useful. We're looking forward to the next episode, and we look forward to seeing you shortly on the Daily Tips Show. So from myself, Gary Setterfield, it's goodbye from me, and Sukhi, it's goodbye from him. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.